Cool. Okay. Well, we've still got a few more minutes before we can start, so we'll just wait for a few 2 more minutes.
I was just getting my presentation ready, Tiana. You know I don't like to leave things to the last minute. I was getting nervous with 2 minutes to go.
You know, the audience can hear us, so hi everyone, if you can hear us. Like I said, we'll just wait for 2 more minutes before we commence the presentations.
I'm impressed that we've got this number of people that have given their Friday night up to attend a webinar. That just goes to show the dedication of the bookkeepers in this industry.
Agree. Couldn't agree more. Well, at least for those that are listening in, we'll possibly have a glass of wine listening to your presenting, Maria, in the next few minutes.
Do you think they're going to need it?
Well, it's a Friday night.
Yeah, may as well get comfortable. I've only got a bottle of water, but I think a wine might be in order afterwards.
Okay, we officially commence at, I think it's 7 o'clock on my watch. So hi everyone, thank you for joining with us for today's webinar. And in these sessions we have the pleasure of having Maria Lanrelli as our presenter, who will talk us through the bookkeeping of the future and how technology and software services of today influence the way we deliver the service to our clients, how to utilize them to incorporate the advisory services into your practice, and a whole lot more. So before I hand over the control to Maria, a little bit of housekeeping so that we know that the technology is working for everyone. And to start the webinar. So can you raise your hands if you can hear me? Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Gavin. Hey, thanks, Denise. So a few people can hear me. Thanks, Christine. Good. Seems like everyone can hear. Great. This session is recorded and will be posted on our on the GovReports website on the webinars calendars page after the sessions. So if you miss a little bit here and there, you can always revisit at the sessions at your convenience. During the session, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to send it through so we can come back to it during the questions time. Okay, it's over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Tiana. Or if it's appropriate and I see a question come through that's talking about a particular slide or a question, I'll try and answer it as we go along, because often it'll lead to further discussion and things like that. So this is me. I'm presenting. Believe me, that photo looks a lot better than it is on a Friday night after a hard week, but we'll press on. So the next slide just talks a little bit about me. I've been an MYOB certified consultant for 25 years and been in the bookkeeping business for 26 years as of next month, actually. So I've been around for a long, long time. I'm involved in a lot of training. I've been doing the Women in Business mentoring program. I did that twice for Department of State and Regional Development. I have a Cert 4 in Training and Assessment, and I've written a number of training materials, and I was actually teaching the Cert 4 in Financial Services Bookkeeping when the the Tax Practitioners Board qualifications were coming in to register as a BAS agent, and I'm a member as a fellow of both the IPA and the Institute, ICB, and I'm a network meeting facilitator for ICB. So, and I've noticed a few that are actually from my Hornsby meeting, so they're used to hearing me. So, the earliest accounting was quite a while ago. You might not think so, but the earliest accounting records were held 7,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia. So at the time, people relied on accounting to keep track of their herds and crops and so forth. Now there are many hundreds and hundreds of different businesses all trying to make a success of their idea. And I don't know about you, but I am often amazed of what people will have as a business and making money on that. So bookkeeping and accounting has been around for a long time. So even though it's been around for a long time, the responsibilities of bookkeeping hasn't changed in thousands of years. We still need to record all the financial transactions and make sure everything is neatly and properly documented. And in most of our cases, we're usually double checking, then triple checking it to make sure it's right. So it's been around for a long, long time. So our tasks have remained the same, but the tools that we use have changed dramatically. And it seems that in the last probably 10 years, we've had a much more rapid growth in the technology that people are using. And there's often little bumps in the road, you know, the things that we're happily going away thinking everything's running smoothly, and then we get hit with a curveball. And those curveballs can be a variety of different things. The first catastrophe that we had was Y2K. Does everyone remember? It was the end of the world. Everything's going to shut down at midnight at 31st of December 1999. Well, we all weathered that storm and, you know, laugh about it 20 years later, but we all weathered that storm. The next curveball was 6 months later. The GST was introduced. And again, it was, oh my goodness, we've got to learn this new thing that the tax office is bringing in. And I remember attending heaps and heaps of courses being run by the ATO and everywhere I could go to gather information to help me along. But those bumps in the road are an opportunity to overcome that challenge. We've had plenty of challenges. We're going to have plenty more coming along. But that bump in the road meant businesses had to get much more smarter. They weren't relying on the accountant at the end of the tax year to do their tax returns. They had to get more organised because they suddenly needed to report some figures to the ATO monthly or quarterly. And in 2018, the Uni of South Australia did a business study, and what they found is that the challenges of small businesses and why most of them failed, and I'm only going to list the top 3 that they found, is insufficient leadership was 25%, inadequate market research into what the people wanted and delivering what people wanted, that was 17%. Number 3 was poor financial management, that was 14%. And I'm surprised it's not higher than that actually, because at the end of the day, business owners start a business with a vision of doing what they love. And that might be carpentry, it might be plumbing, it might be a corner shop, it might be a restaurant. But unfortunately, while they're good at what they do, it doesn't mean that they're actually good business people. And they often don't manage their business well. The ones that do manage their business well are the ones that go, I need to get more information. I need to find out how my business is going, and not 15 months after the event. I need to know now as I'm going along so I can make those decisions. And it's interesting how the shift has changed. As we've had a lot more people coming in from overseas offering their services. We've had a lot more accountants coming into the space because suddenly the business owners are wanting more, and they don't want to now just do the compliance. They see bookkeeping as an opportunity and will try and get in there. Now, what they do, which I don't agree with, is they'll get someone just to do the data entry and they'll charge a small amount of fee, usually overseas, and then once a year they'll incorporate the higher fees into their accounting fees to go and fix it up. So they just lodge it based on what's there, not necessarily ensuring it's accurate as they're going along. They just fix it up at the end of the year. So with the GST and Y2K, it meant software became available. And firstly, it was desktop bound. So this is a copy of, I think it was the 2009, no, not 2009, it was about the 2013 MYOB software and the old Quicken that was mostly originally what was available to small businesses. Then we started getting into the cloud-based, and we had the Xeros coming in, and then QuickBooks Online came in, MYOB Essentials, and that really started to bring a lot easier for businesses to get information. Unfortunately, I think it's a double-edged sword, because all these software companies, because they want people to buy their software, it's easy. You don't need any accounting knowledge to do this stuff. You just press the button. And I'll relate a funny story. I've got a mother and father who have had, I think they've 6 kids, and 4 of them have gone into business, and I helped 2 of them, one of which has just gone into business about 18 months ago. And I was doing the bookkeeping.
Is it me, or I just can't hear you? I can't hear you, Maria. We lost you for about 30 seconds.
She's talking, but still can't hear.
You can hear Cindy?
No, I can't hear Maria.
Okay. Maria, we lost you for about 60 seconds. 60 seconds now. Okay. No, you're not the only one. Maria, we just, for whatever reasons, we just lost Maria. Just hold. Sorry, Cheryl, it's not you. It's Catherine, it's not you. We can't hear Maria either. So for whatever reasons, it's perhaps the internet is not good. Maria, we've lost you for 2 minutes. Sorry, guys. She's just trying to reconnect. Okay. Apologies. Maria is trying to reconnect into the system because it's just not too sure what's going on her side. This is a problem when we go online. And of course, we can never always rely on technology. And though it's good and it's getting better, it doesn't mean we cannot rely on human. Maria, we can see your slides. I can hear you.
Could someone just let me know if you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, good.
Are we back on?
Yeah, we're back on.
If you can hear me, can someone raise their hand that hasn't already? We're back on. Terrific. Thank you. Sorry about that. Technology, it's wonderful when it works. It's just when it doesn't. So, I'm not sure where we got up to, but let's keep going. So then technology has changed, and we're able to access things on smartphones. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm here in a public place doing the webinar with you, because technology has meant we aren't stuck in an office and going to the clients. We can work remotely and work from anywhere. And then the software companies have then brought in other things to help with the processing, all the different apps that can add on to a particular program. But then what happens is the tax office adds more compliance. We then had the TPARs. We've then had RISK. Our most recent foray is STP. And who knows whatever else that they will add on at a later point in time. And we need to be ready and be able to help our clients deal with that. And then often it's things like HR, because at the end of the day they can't get that information anywhere else really. So that's then added to the stress, and we've had things like the worry about artificial intelligence. You know, if all of this is starting to be automated, am I still going to have a job? Well, you know, I know a lot of people are worried about it, but I'm not worried about it. I don't know if anyone was at Insight recently, and there was very few in the middle ground that goes, I'm neither one way or another, but there was a lot that were, I'm excited about this, or I'm really, really worried about this. Because as I said, technology can only do so much. It can't interpret the information because it is just a dumb machine. And the way I look at it is those bumps in the road, it's a bump, not a mountain. You can go over it, you can go around it, but it doesn't stop you moving forward. And that's what we need to shift our change. It's gone are the days where it's just about the data processing. You know, the technology, all it's done is it has made things easier, a job easier to do. And, you know, it's hard to believe, but at one point the quill and ink were considered cutting edge technology. None of us would even consider doing that anymore. So as a business owner has grown, they want more information to help them run and grow their business. And they're the ones that aren't going to fail. The problem I find is early days, which is when they really, really need it, that's when they're more conscious about the money. Later on, I tend to find, depending on the lifestyle of the client, they're starting to realise that they actually now need to get more information and get themselves educated on what those numbers mean. And unfortunately, I found that a lot of people, they turn to their accountant, but the accountant doesn't explain it. They just don't understand it. Many a client has got me to go to an accountant appointment with them just so I can be there listening, so I can explain it to them afterwards. So that's the main thing that they find. They need someone that is going to help them interpret the information. And the accountant, as good as they are at tax advice and compliance advice, they're not really good at the day-to-day stuff. They don't understand the business and where the transactions come from. And that's where we have an advantage. So we've now got the tools to handle all the complicated record keeping. So that's led to similar tasks taking less and less time. Let's be real, things that used to take days then started to take hours when computers were first introduced with computer accounting software. Now that the technology has moved cloud-based and we've got things like bank feeds, things that took hours, days, now take hours. So we then need to decide how we intend to use that time. And what it's going to look like is it's an opportunity for you and your business if you want to take it. Because at the end of the day, only you can know what you want to do. And that might be taking on more clients to handle yourself, taking on staff to help you with the increased workload. But that comes at a cost because you're then not doing the work, you're managing staff instead. So using less time to complete the same tasks gives you more time to do the things that you want with family and friends. All right, thanks, sorry. About 8 o'clock, just before 8. I normally do, I rent one of the rooms. I didn't realise I needed to do it for tonight. Thank you. So we can use that time to do other things or offer additional value-added services, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So what you need to do is decide what services do I offer my clients. Whatever they want or need at the time is my view. I don't place any limits on what I offer them. I always say I'll get involved in your business as much or as little as you want me to. So some of the services that I offer my clients are consulting and advice on accounting packages. That's not as much now, but I still do a fair bit of consulting, and most of my clients come in from the consulting on their systems. And then once they've had me in to help them, they go, oh, I think I'll get you to come in more regularly. Monthly management reporting. A lot of my clients, they do the data entry. I then go in and review it and do the BAS and then prepare reports for them. BAS review and lodgement. Payment summary review and lodgement. And it was funny, I was talking with Tiana the other day. Most people think that with STP, payment summaries are dead. Well, I know out of my client base, I'm still going to have to do about 6 or 10 of them this year because they're closely held. They have no need to do the STP reporting at all. So we've still got to do a payment summary at the end of the year, either me or the accountant. And it might be the bookkeeping, it might be debt collection, financial advice. And I'm very careful with giving advice. And what I tend to do is, I'm not a tax agent. I can't give you the tax implications of that. You need to talk to your accountant. But here's the things that you can go and talk to your accountant about. And Often it's been things that I've seen other accountants doing with their clients. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients was looking at buying an investment property. The accountant was telling them that, oh yes, you've got to buy this property and we'll own it in 3 ways. You'll own part of it, the business will own part of it, and the super fund will own part of it. And on my end, I'm thinking, oh, that's going to be an accounting nightmare to deal with. And so when I was talking with the client, I said, look, you know, you might want to consider, and it was at the time that businesses could put in a fair bit of money into super as a lump sum, put the money into the super fund from the business. You haven't got the money in the business, move it across from your personal into the business as a loan, then move it from the business into the super fund, and then you'll be able to do it. They went and talked to their accountant, and ultimately the accountant then went that way, which I was going, oh, thank goodness, we only needed to deal with this investment property in one entity now instead of 3 entities. So HR and payroll, and let's face it, we have the most complicated HR and payroll system in the world, and there's nowhere that they can get advice. So I'll often help them with the forms that they need to do, because most of them have no idea, oh, I've got to give them a Fair Work information statement. I've got to give them, hey, here's a form that they can fill in that has all of their bank account details. Oh, I've got to give them a super choice form. Oh, I've just started to employ somebody. That's great. Have you set up a workers' comp policy? Oh, no, I didn't know I needed to do that, and so on. So often I'll liaise with the bank for financing if they're going for loans, liaise with the ATO for payment plans, and a lot of this is some that you're already doing. I offer telephone and email support, often refer them to other professionals. I need this, this and this, do you know anybody? And it's interesting, they're coming to me more and more rather than going to their accountant for that sort of thing. Review meetings with the tax agents. Often there's also a bit of counselling involved, and then there's the plus, plus, plus. So before we start getting into it, talking about advisory services, I want to talk about the boogeyman in the corner, and that's your fee. And it doesn't matter if you offer a fixed fee or an hourly rate. That depends on your preference. Some people prefer fixed fees, some people prefer hourly rate. If you are doing fixed fees, make sure that your engagement letter specifies what is included, your day-to-day, and if you are going to be starting to offer advisory services, that is at a different rate. And quite frankly, at a much higher rate. You can't offer advisory services for the same as your bookkeeping rate. And the way I equate that to is bookkeeping and just doing straight data entry involves less knowledge for me. I know where to put things to. I know where the GST is. I don't have to think about it. Yes, I still have to have the knowledge to make sure I'm doing it properly. But when I'm starting to do consulting or starting to do advisory type services, then that involves a completely different skill set that you need to be compensated for. So what is the going rate for an employed bookkeeper? $25 an hour, $30 an hour, $35 an hour, plus super, plus workers' comp, plus, plus, plus. So the $25 an hour becomes $27.38 with super. The $30 an hour becomes $32.85 with super, and $35 an hour becomes $38.33 with super. But there's so much more that's involved in you running a business, and you need to look at those extra costs. And this is just a small amount. You've got, however small it is, I know we're all trying to work for a paperless society, but printing and stationery. You might travel to client on site, so you'll have motor vehicle running. Training and professional development, you know, there's a submission at the moment that the Tax Practitioners Board suggesting that 15 hours a year isn't enough for bookkeepers and BAS agents. And quite frankly, I agree with that, because if you're intending to offer a quality service, you need to make sure that your skills and knowledge are the best that they can be. Now, I'm at the stage that I've been going to courses and running courses and attending courses for 25 years. I consider my knowledge is quite high. But If I even learn one thing by attending a course, then that course has been worthwhile. So you need to be picky and choosy, but that comes at a cost that you have to bear, and that's got to be on top of your rate. Your business registrations, you've got ASIC fees if you're a company, you've got tax practitioners board, you've got the insurances, PI insurance, public liability, income protection, sickness and accident, workers' comp if you're employing staff. You need to take into account your holiday and personal leave, technology such as computers and tablets, software, telephones and all the extras. And they can actually add up. So let's put some numbers in. So these are no means definitive. I've just plucked some numbers out of the air. But if you add in those numbers, I don't think there's anything unreasonable in that. And I think in some cases, I've really underestimated what a lot of the costs are. So that comes to a total annual. Before you even start doing anything, it's costing you almost $36,000 a year to be in business. So if you're not earning more than that, you may as well be going to work for someone for $35 an hour or $30 an hour, and at least you get 4 weeks annual leave and sick leave and eventually long service leave and super and things like that. So let's assume that you're working 30 hours per week, 40 weeks of the year, with holidays and days off for running training and attending training and things like that. So the hourly cost to your business on 1,200 hours a year is $29.96. So if you're only charging $25 an hour, your fee is under already by $4.96, and that is a loss for almost $6,000 a year for you before you've even started. You haven't even covered your costs yet by that stage. So just following on from that, so if you are charging a reasonable charge out rate, and a reasonable charge out rate is 2.5 is the generally acceptable, and that's in line with what ICB recommend. I think theirs is now slightly higher. Your annual profit is $39,050. So an employee at 30 hours per week at $27.38 is earning $32,000. If you're only charging $62.50, you're making a profit of $39,000. So I'm not trying to tell you what to charge, but you need to really think about, why am I doing this? Am I running it because I love it and I want the flexibility? And that might be the case. But let's face it, we all have bills to pay. We have an additional cost of running a service for people, as well as we're trying to make money to pay our own bills, put food on the table, mortgages and things like that. So how do you start? So don't underestimate yourself. You're probably already offering some of these services, either debt collection or HR. Start small. Print off the balance sheet and the P&L for your clients and point out a few things of interest. And things I'm talking about, it's just little things. Hey, this time last year, on your profit and loss, you had income of $200,000, and this year you've got $250,000. What's changed since last year? Oh, yeah, we've found a couple of extra clients. Well, great. What else can you do to bring that in? Oh, your costs have gone down. Your gross profit has gone up. What's changed? Oh yeah, we found a new supplier that's cheaper, which means that we can charge the same price for the service or the product that we're selling, but it's costing us less, so we're making more profit. And I'll sit down with the client and look at their P&L and say, okay, you want to improve that bottom line. What can you do? There's only 3 things that's going to improve that bottom line. One is to increase your sales volume, one is to increase your sales price, and one is to reduce your costs. So you might not be able to do all of those, because that's usually the reaction I get. Oh, I can't increase my prices. I'll lose customers. And I had a client that cleaning business, he hadn't increased his prices in I think 6 years for his existing people. And I said, well, your wages are going up, your materials are going up, but you haven't increased your prices, so you're making less money. And so I sat down with him in the July, June and said, okay, we're going to increase your prices. And I'd look at someone and go, okay, it's $100 for the cleaning. Let's put that up to 110. Oh no, I can't put it up to 110. Let's do 105. I'll lose business otherwise. So I advised him, but he chose not to do that, and that's fine. Sometimes you can make the suggestion, be the devil's advocate, so to speak, but ultimately it's their business and their choice. So we put up the prices, you know, some were $5, $10, most of them weren't very much, and goodness me, he didn't lose one single client. So the next year I said to him, hey, you know, it's now been a year since you increased your prices, it's time to put them up again. Oh, I don't know, I'll probably end up losing customers. Well, did you lose customers last year? No, I didn't. Well, then let's increase it. By the third year in the May, he was saying, okay, we've got to look at our new pricing for next year. So he had slowly and surely been guided by me to, it's time to make a change. You know, okay, volume. Where can you get new clients? What have you looked at? Have you got a website? Have you got, where do you do your advertising? Is it print media? Is it word of mouth? What else can you do? So you're then starting to getting them thinking about it. Profit and loss is easier. They do understand that a little bit more. Balance sheet is beyond most of the small businesses until you start educating them. So keep it simple. Don't use terminology that they don't understand. For example, I never use the words debtors and creditors. I'll talk to them in the language they understand, customers and supplier balances. Use other tools, things like pie charts and graphs and things like that. A picture tells 1,000 words, and for a small business who isn't number savvy, a picture means more to them. You're talking to them in the language that they understand. Probably the biggest thing is don't show them too much too quickly because they'll only get confused. You know, there might be 15 things that you want to talk about. Pick 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, no more than that. Save some of them for the next time around. And you'll then find that they start to ask questions because you're not making them feel stupid, and that's often the case. They'll go to their accountant and he starts droning in about the balance sheet and the profit and loss and this and that, and they don't want to appear stupid, so they don't ask any questions. And they're never going to learn that way. Whereas if you're just showing them little bits and pieces and going, hey, this has changed, they start looking for the other things. And then we'll start asking you more questions. So don't show them too much and don't overload them with information. So I always start off by making it as simple as possible. And this is, I actually teach understanding the financial reports. Initially it started off for businesses, then I started training it with BAS agents. It was part of my Cert 4 in bookkeeping course, and I've recently been teaching it at the IPA where accountants and bookkeepers are coming in to understand A, the reports themselves and what to look for, and B, how to explain them. So this is how I usually explain it to a client, an end user, who even with no accounting knowledge is going to understand something like this where it equates to them. I tell them that their balance sheet is like their house. You know, the asset is the house that's worth $500,000, the liability is the bank loan worth $300,000, so the equity or the net worth is the $500,000 less the $300,000, so $200,000. And suddenly in their head, the balance sheet makes sense. It's not just a bunch of numbers. And I'll explain, look, this is a really simple form of doing it. Your assets are made up of a lot more things. It's made up of your bank account. It's made up of your stock. It's made up of your trucks. It's made up of all sorts of things. Your liabilities isn't just one loan. It's the creditors that you owe money to, your suppliers that you owe money to. It's the GST that you have to pay to the tax office. It's the PAYG you have to pay for the tax office. You might have got a bank loan to buy the vehicles. That's in your liabilities. Whatever left is your equity. So, you know, your house and your mortgage is just one asset. Your business is made up of lots of assets. And the history goes back to the beginning. Those assets and liabilities, your plant and equipment might still be the balances from when you bought it 10 years ago. Yes, it's been depreciated, and that's something that they don't often understand. Not so much an issue now with the accelerated depreciation where they can write it off in a year, but before they didn't understand that. But I just bought a $30,000 car, you know, why am I paying tax? And they don't understand that while they're making a profit, if it's sitting in their customer balances, it's not making them money. So for their profit and loss, I'll explain it as, you know, wages or other income like rent. If they've got an investment property, expenses or bills paid, and that gives you your excess funds or your profit, and then that goes into your equity, what's left over. I'll try and make it as easy as possible, and while I do get fancy, I still try and keep it as simple as possible. This is one of the reports that I printed. I was on the board of a not-for-profit, and this was similar to what I would provide to the board members. It's called a snapshot report. I developed this a long time ago when I was working as part of a franchise for the toolkit for the accountants to use with small businesses. And I customise this to suit whatever the clients want. So, for example, there's a small little profit and loss with the year to date and if they've got budgets. And that's something else you can help them with. You know, you want to grow, let's set some budgets. You know, you don't get from Sydney to Perth without a plan, and a budget is a plan for your business. You might not get it right. You might have to stop for fuel and, you know, change course and get directions, but it's a plan to help you get where you want to go. So I'll include the things that my client wants to see in this. But sometimes they want to see something else. You know, funny enough, the client I was at today, this is what they want to see. They just want to see the sales year by year. So this is from when I first started with them, plotted in a graph. There's another one that I print for them as well, and I think I've got that as my next slide. This is what they want to see. They don't want to see all of the other stuff. They want to see, is there any trends? And in a graph, it shows you those trends. They also want to see their inventory. They offer 2 product lines. They want to see how much income they're getting from each product. So it isn't a one shoe fits all. You really need to customise it to what your client wants to see. Another one that I do regularly is this inventory, because most of them don't understand, oh, but I've got all of this stock. Oh, well, yeah, but you haven't sold it. And is it going to become obsolete? You know, can you sell it? You know, are you ordering it too quickly? So this graph that I do tends to show it to them. You know, day 1 you buy the stock. Day 30 you might pay for the stock, 45 days later you sell the stock, and you might get paid in 90 days. So how are your debtors? Are you collecting them? Because while you've got inventory on the shelves and you've got customers that owe you money, then that's money in everybody else's pocket and not your pocket. So you can offer to help them with the debt collection. Clients hate chasing debt. Most bookkeepers hate chasing debt. I'll do it. It's a service that they need, and I'm happy to ring up someone or send a few emails and collect it in. And if you can get their over 90 days down into current, then that's something that is really going to help their business. It's an additional service that you can provide. So when I showed them this graph, I'm going, that's 60 days, your money is sitting in someone else's bank account. So let's see if we can change it. Day 1, you buy the stock, day 30 you pay for it, but day 35 you sell it, and day 65 you get paid. So we've suddenly changed it from 45 to 30 days. Not a big change, is it? And changing from selling it 15 days later to selling it 5 days later. Now that doesn't always work, and it isn't going to work in every business. I'm just giving you the ideas of what you can start the conversation with your client. And that's 35 days that your money is sitting in someone else's bank account. When you're putting it in terms like that, they're suddenly going, oh yeah, you know, I might be owed $100,000, but if I haven't got that money, I can't pay for my other things. Now, one of my clients quite a few years ago, one client, they actually negotiated 90-day terms with their supplier. They were in a kitchen manufacturer, so they had long lead times. So for them, what was important was getting a long time to pay for the stock. So they negotiated 90-day terms with their suppliers. Another client of mine, we tracked it for a couple of months, and he was the type that as soon as he got a bill, he paid it. You know, I would often go in there, I'd give him my monthly bill. I'd have it beside me in an envelope to give it to him, and suddenly it had disappeared and he had a check there for me. And he would often pay things twice because he was in such a rush to get it. It had come in the email and come in the post, and he'd pay both of them. So for him, having longer terms to pay wasn't important. So he negotiated with his supplier, I always pay you on time, so I want a better discount from you. And depending on which one it was, in his case, he could buy, it was a hearing aid business, and the margins on that at that time were astronomical. I don't know what they are now, but at that time it was 100% profit. So in his case, it was, well, if I've got 5 different product ranges that are all as good as each other and they're about the same price, but I can get it cheaper from buying it from them just because I pay them quicker, then if he gives me a bigger discount, then I make more of a margin. So that was something, just one small change for something he was already doing that his supplier was happy to give him, but until he asked for it, it didn't happen. And it was only as we were tracking and looking at the information of, well, what else can we do? Can you increase your sales? Well, yeah, maybe we can, our quantity. Can you increase your prices? Well, not really, because the competition is out there and everyone sells it for the same price. Well, let's look at reducing your costs. And if you can tweak little bits and pieces, you don't have to do just one of them. So they're the conversations that you can have with them, and the more you talk with them, the more it opens up the conversation. So what you then need to do is, if you don't feel confident interpreting the information like the P&L and the balance sheet, attend CPD to gain those skills you need to offer those services. Don't charge the same fee for bookkeeping as advisory services. Your new skills are worth more. Don't undervalue yourself. I can't stress that enough. Don't undervalue what your services are. And in my case, I tend to, if I've got a client who is questioning me on price right from the very beginning, then I don't want them as a client. And I'm in a fortunate position. I've been around for 26 years. I've had my own business for 20 years of that. I'm not in a position that I need to take on new clients. And I had someone the other day, and I've had it before, and I leave it up to them. Look, at the end of the day, these are my skills. I value the skills. I have to do a lot of CPD to keep up my skills, which come at a cost. I have business registrations. This is my fee. I understand if you can't afford it and don't want to use my services, only you can decide if, you know, the advice I give you is worth the fee. And I had one last week and she's come back and said, look, we're really, really small. I don't think I can afford you. We're only starting out. And to be honest, I think she was trying it on because her husband's invoices are $30, $40, $50, $100,000 per invoice, but they'll try and put it on. You know, I lost it as a client, but to me it wasn't a great loss, because if I'm constantly trying to prove the value of what I'm providing to them, I don't need to do that. And I've had another client, this was early days, where they rang up and, you know, what do you charge? Oh, it's X amount of dollars per hour. Oh, that's expensive. And I went, well, yeah, but you know, you call a plumber out, it costs you $150, $200 for the first 15 minutes. You know, when you're comparing it with mine, are you going to get the plumber in to do it? And yes, you will find some that are cheaper, and yes, you will find some that are more expensive. She then rang me back about 2 or 3 hours later, and I went and booked an appointment with me, and I went, oh, you know, I'm surprised. I said, I thought you were questioning the price. She said, yes, but you were honest with me. Yes, there were people that were cheaper, there were people that were more expensive, but you were honest about what it was, and I would rather go with you than with the cheapest person, because I know that you're going to give me the value for what I need. So you've got to make that choice, and it is harder in the early days. It's a lot easier once you've been going a while. I think the other thing is it's going to be easier to offer it to new clients, but what you need to do is look at some existing clients that you think will be receptive, and start, if you haven't got the skills, to get your feet wet. So you might not get much more out of it, and you might be still offering it at a lower bookkeeping rate, but then as you get more confident and have more knowledge, then you can start to offer more. Now, I actually have quite a high rate for both bookkeeping and consulting. My consulting rate is much higher, but even my bookkeeping rate is quite substantial. It's in the 3 digits, and it has been for a long, long time. And the reason I do that, and I've said it to people, I've had one client, he'd been a client for many, many years, and his son as well, and the father had gotten a bee in his bonnet that I was expensive, and you know, I was charging too much, and the son came with, rang me afterwards, and he said, look, I'm really sorry, I've got to go with my business with where Dad gets his done. I don't want to change from you, but he's got a bee in his bonnet. And I said, that's fine, totally understand. Left it on really, really good terms. A year later, the son rings me back and says, oh, Maria, it was an absolute disaster. You know, you used to do it in half an hour on my books while you're at Dad's place. It took her, you know, 3-4 hours to do it, and it wasn't even right. You know, I was paying a lot more, and I know she wasn't putting everything in properly, you know. And I said, well, look, I'm happy to do it, but it wasn't you and it wasn't me that decided not to do it anymore. It was your father. So if you want me back and you're only going to go with where your dad is, you've got to talk to him. So he did, and his father then called me back an hour or so later and said, look, I'd want to come back with you. You know, yes, it was more expensive as an hourly rate, but in the long run it was cheaper because you did it faster, you did it accurately, and, you know, I knew that it was being done properly. So, you know, I think clients will try and put it on, and I do it myself. I'll ring up and try and get it, negotiate a better price. But it's then up to me to decide whether I want that service at that price, and that service comes with a cost. And if I'm prepared to pay for that, then that's what it's all about. So that's probably the end of my presentation side of things. We've still got about 8 minutes left to go. So has anyone got any questions that they want to ask?
Actually, you have a question from Gavin, and the question is, what advice can you give a new entrant into the bookkeeping business?
If people are typing or...
Maria, can you hear me? Maria, can you hear me?
Okay, well, I'll tell
Maria?
you, I think we've
Maria,
ended the
like
presentation and nobody's got any questions, or it's that glass of wine has already gone to their head and they've nodded off.
Maria, Cindy, can you talk to Maria and see if she can hear you?
Hi, Maria. There.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and got some value out of tonight. Thank you for giving up your Friday nights to attend the presentation, and have a good weekend.
Sorry, my apologies. It seems like Maria can't see the screen and also cannot hear me as well. So for those governed, we will get back to you. I'll get Maria to come back to you with your questions. And
so I'm just trying to see what the question is. So what advice can you give a new entrant into the bookkeeping registered BAS agent that is a sole trader with their own ABN? I'm a CPA accountant, now semi-retired, but wishing to provide services for part week and finding it difficult to attract clients even after advertising my services. I think the hardest thing is getting your own first client. And you know, I was part of a panel about 2 years ago, and they were going through with the other panelists, some of which were new and some of which were older, and saying, you know, what would you do again? And my answer was, I really wouldn't do anything that I did 20 years ago now, because it's all changed. You know, when I started, print media was the biggest thing, an ad in the paper, a letterbox drop, and things like that. Now it's all about the social media. It's having a website. It's having good SEO on your website. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that people can find you. It can be going out and just chatting with businesses, attending networking events. My early days, probably about 5 or 10 years in, I belonged to a networking group, but it was different. It wasn't like the BNI chapters where there was one person from each profession and there were only 10 people there, and it's all about referrals, referrals, referrals. It was a big business networking group. So there was probably 100 small businesses in the room, and during the breaks you got to chat with them. A lot of the councils will offer business networking groups. So that would probably be where I would start if I was starting again now. Go out there, attend those, you know, talk to the different people and say, just start talking about what you do, and you know, they'll go, oh yeah, I need to look at that. Can I have a card? That would probably be my number one thing that I would do, is that, and having a good website. Facebook, I don't believe for our industry really works. I had a Facebook page for my business and I was trying to keep up to date with content, but I never got a lead out of it. Same for me with LinkedIn. I have a profile. I do keep it up to date, but I don't think I've ever gotten a business contact or work from it. I think it's a good way of establishing your credentials, but it's not going to be the source of your credentials and getting clients. So is there any other? Okay, I think that was it, unless anyone's got any final questions. Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. That's all, folks. Thanks and good night, and have a good weekend. If you do have questions and you haven't been able to, you haven't thought of, and would like to send it through to us, we'll be more than happy to pass it on to Maria to come back to you. Thanks, guys. Good night.